Hello aviators, let's discuss some very important information concerning stable approaches and how to legally descend below our MDA or decision altitude. You'll be using this information not only on your written knowledge test, but most likely during your oral exam, and most certainly when you are flying an instrument approach in actual conditions. The FAA defines a stable approach as a constant glide path to touchdown, or a position from which the aircraft can be safely landed without unusual changes to power or attitude. In IMC, the aircraft must be stabilized and properly configured for landing by 1,000 feet AGL. In VMC, the aircraft must be configured and stabilized by 500 feet AGL. Additionally, and unless briefed otherwise, a descent rate of 1,000 feet per minute or less must be maintained by 1,000 feet AGL in IMC and 500 feet AGL in visual conditions. 3 requirements must be met for a pilot to descend below the minimum descent altitude, decision altitude, or decision height. Number 1. The aircraft must be able to land utilizing a normal rate of descent and normal maneuvers, meaning no steep turns or diving at the runway. Number 2. The visibility must be equal to or greater than the minimums prescribed by the instrument approach procedure being flown. Number 3, and here's the big one, the pilot must have one of the following in sight. The approach lighting system, although this only allows the pilot to descend to 100 feet above touchdown zone elevation unless the red termination bars or red side row bars are distinctly visible. The threshold markings, threshold lights, runway end identifier lights, visual glide slope indicator, touchdown zone markings, touchdown zone lights, the runway markings, or the runway lights. Now, that's a lot of items to remember, but a good rule of thumb is this. You've got to see a light or marking either on or touching the runway. Each instrument approach will contain a charted missed approach procedure. ATC will either assign the published missed approach or provide a heading and altitude to be flown. A pilot is expected to go missed approach when operating below MDA and the runway environment is not in sight, visual contact is lost on a circling maneuver, or DHDA missed approach point is reached without having one of the required runway references clearly in sight. Upon commencing a missed approach, the pilot must apply full power and establish a climb as quickly as possible. Flaps, spoilers, and other devices must also be cleaned up in a safe and timely manner. The pilot must always conduct aircraft operations within POH, AFM, and the OpSpecs guidelines for that aircraft. Now, minimum sector altitudes, or MSAs, are published on the instrument approach procedure chart for reference in case of an emergency. MSAs provide 1,000 feet of clearance over all obstacles, but may not provide adequate nav aid reception. The MSA depiction contains the identifier of the center point of the MSA, the protected radius, and the minimum altitudes. And in some cases, an MSA can be divided into sectors if terrain clearances make that necessary.